It was last Thursday that Lindsay Daum and her daughter Meadow Skinner, were killed in their home in Loveland.
And court documents identify the suspect as Daum's ex-boyfriend. She had previously filed several protection orders against him, alleging abuse. Meadow Skinner was just 16 when she was shot and killed, but she had made it clear that she was going to change the world. Through the Colorado Youth Congress, she was working to bring extra mental health supports to schools. The founder and the executive director of CYC said from a statement that she started with the organization 2 years ago and that they saw her ability to see people for all that they were and love deeply.
I know Meadow cared about domestic violence. I know Meadow cared about mental health and gun safety. She wanted everybody to live happy, full, healthy lives, and she knew that these things got in the way. And it was so clear when you talked to her that she was a powerful force, and she had this whole life ahead of her of leadership, of bringing joy and love to her community. And that's no longer a possibility.
Meadow's grandmother now has to care for her 4 siblings left behind. A GoFundMe has been set up on their behalf by the Colorado Youth Congress. If you want to find out more about it, we have a link on our website, 9news.com.
Denver police say the deadly shooting on I-70 on Sunday night was simply a senseless act of violence. The victim, a 31-year-old man who was just trying to drive home from work. Kevin Piaskowski's fiancée shared photos with us. She says that he proposed to her on a beach just 2 months ago, and they were planning to spend the rest of their lives together. She says he loved his job at United Airlines. He loved the Dodgers, and he loved her.
It was like there was a whole soul behind it and a whole life behind this like senseless, disgusting tragedy. And lives are just never going to be the same. And I miss him already, and I can't even think about missing him tomorrow or the next day or the next day.
Police say a dash cam video captured what happened. We want to warn you that it does show shots being fired. You can see the pickup truck on the right weaving in and out of traffic. And then you see the gunshots coming from that truck, which then goes on to crash into a semi and other cars on the side of the road. Police say that pickup truck was stolen and the driver ran off after the crash, but anyone with any information is asked to call Crime Stoppers.
A dentist was found guilty in Denver federal court for murdering his wife on an African safari. Larry Rudolph killed his wife Bianca with a shotgun and then cashed in on $4.8 million in life insurance payments. During the trial, Rudolph maintained his innocence and said he believed the gun fired accidentally. The jury also found his girlfriend, Lori Milleron, guilty of being an accessory after the fact to murder, obstruction of justice, and 2 counts of perjury. The trial was held in Denver because that's where the insurance payouts came from. Today, the Walton Penners announced the addition of the most successful race car driver of all time to the Broncos ownership group. Sir Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time Formula One world champion, will spend a little more time in Colorado after joining the team today. Rob Walton, the company's primary owner, said this morning Hamilton knows what it takes to lead a winning team. His F1 team, Mercedes, has won the last 8 team championships, and Hamilton has won the last 6 of 8 drivers' titles. Hamilton put out his own statement this afternoon saying he's, quote, honored to work with a world-class team and serve as an example of the value of more diverse leadership throughout all sports. His dog, Roscoe, is already ready for Game 1, dressed out in Bronco gear. Hamilton's inclusion makes him the 3rd person of color on the Broncos ownership team, alongside Starbucks board chair Mellody Hobson and former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. The 3 now make up half of the now 6-person team. Some of Denver's largest companies are also welcoming him to town. Hamilton, Frontier Airlines, based at DIA, says it's already got a plane mascot named after him, and they'd be willing to put a picture of Roscoe in a Broncos jersey on a plane sometime in the future. Hamilton is no stranger to our state. He's owned a home in Beaver Creek for several years, and he has said he eventually wants to retire there. Plus, he's already friends with the Wilsons. You know, you've probably heard of them, Russ and Sierra. They were in the Mercedes garage during the Monaco Grand Prix earlier this summer.
Now to the team itself, because the big news out of Dove Valley today was the Broncos putting on the pads for the first time at training camp, and that increase in speed and physicality was welcome to many, but there were also injuries. And our Broncos insider Mike Kliss joining us now from Bronco headquarters. Mike, you have sources saying that a key player suffered what will be a major injury today.
Yeah, Tim Patrick done for the season with an ACL injury. It's interesting. It was full pads for the first time today, but there were two season-ending ACL injuries. Demaria Crockett, a running back, a backup running back, special teamer who played in 12 games last year for the Broncos. He had an ACL injury. Neither were the result of contact. Tim Patrick went up, made a nice catch, landed, seemed to land cleanly, took a couple steps, and then his right leg collapsed, and the MRI confirmed the worst he has done for the season. And Demaria Crockett was just running down the field on a special teams drill, planted, and he felt his knee go. So it's tough, Tom, for the Broncos. Third year in a row, they've lost a receiver to an ACL injury early in the season. They lost Cortland Sutton in 2020 in Game 2, KJ Hamler in Game 3 of last season, and now Patrick in training camp.
We just heard from KJ Hamler yesterday talking about the downside mentally of being on that injured list. I imagine he has an opportunity to be a great friend to Tim Patrick, who's now going to travel that same road. But let's talk about what's going to happen now with that diagnosis now for Tim Patrick. Who on this roster is going to be asked to step up and try to fill that void?
Well, the way it was working is Sutton and Patrick were the starters, and Jerry Jeudy was the third. Now Jerry Jeudy will be a starter, and that's not much of a fall off there. They're okay there. They need KJ Hamler to come on from his ACL injury, still not cleared for contact. He'll be the number 3. And then it's going to be a real battle for number 4, Kendall Hinton. A lot of people remember him as the quarterback under difficult circumstances in 2020. When all the other 3 quarterbacks were suspended from the game for COVID reasons. He's the next guy. Tyree Cleveland is going to have a chance. And then rookie Montrell Washington, watch him. He's going to make this team as a returner, so he's already on the 53. They thought he'd be a year away as far as helping as a receiver, but maybe that's accelerated right now. He actually had a walk-off touchdown catch to end practice today.
An eye on all of that, and certainly wishing Tim Patrick the best. He's become quite a fan favorite for all he's done in the last couple of years. Stepped up and became a big-time player. Mike, we'll visit with you coming up for more on that coming up at 5 o'clock. Thanks.
Let's take a look outside on this Tuesday afternoon. We've got a few clouds out there. A little bit of clouds helps always to cut the heat just a tad bit, Danielle, but it's plenty hot.
We'll take what we can get. Absolutely. We're back into the 90s, so no great surprise there. And we're going to stay that way as we look ahead toward the rest of the work week. Luckily, the weekend arrives and we do have a nice little cool off on the way. But first, we got to charge through this heat. Good news is there are a few storms out there brewing up in the mountains through the foothills. Hopefully, they'll be crossing the I-25 corridor. We have a good shot at seeing maybe 1 or 2 of those gusty thunderstorms pushing through within the next couple of hours. Temperatures right now holding steady in the lower 90s around the Front Range, 99 in Ray. We're in the upper 90s in far southeastern Colorado, some triple digits in Kansas. Up into the mountains, some lower 70s around Steamboat through Kremling, 80s in Gunnison, and about 94 in Grand Junction. As you can see, the storms coming our way from the west as we zoom in here to the metro area. Maybe just a couple of storms sneaking just to the north of Fort Collins. If anything, we'll see a little bit of lightning, possibly some light rain showers, gusty winds, and that really is going to be about it. These storms are not going to be severe and luckily fairly fast moving, so I'm not looking at any major flash flooding concerns for our burn scars. As we look further to the south around Pagosa Springs, some nice rain showers coming through and quite a bit of lightning too heading out toward the San Luis Valley. Again, here in the metro area, maybe 1 or 2 quick thunderstorms firing up, and that could potentially continue into later this evening. Here we are about 11 o'clock or so up toward Winter Park through Georgetown. Still a little bit of light rain on the way. This evening, thunderstorms, they'll be popping kind of here and there. I do have a cold front coming our way though. That is going to allow our temperatures to dip just a bit. Plus, we're talking about the 90s. Yep, they're here to stay this week. But again, the weekend arrives and we have a nice break. Details on that when I see you in about 10 minutes.
A couple other sports notes to get to. The owner of the Miami Dolphins, Stephen Ross, fined $1.5 million by the NFL today, also suspended from participating in any team events through the 17th of October. And his team was stripped of its first-round draft pick in 2023. That's all because the league said today that the Dolphins had tampered with both quarterback Tom Brady and the New Orleans Saints head coach Sean Payton. Also in this story, though, the Dolphins were cleared of the allegations. You may remember that they had intentionally dropped games in 2019, tanking to try and get higher draft picks. In a statement today, Stephen Ross said his team never sought to lose games and that he strongly disagreed with the conclusions and the punishment regarding tampering. Tiger Woods has a lot of money, so much so that he turned down an offer of up to $800 million to join the Saudi-backed Live Golf Series.
And this comes from Greg Norman. He confirmed the offer in an interview with Fox News. Woods was offered $700 to $800 million to join that series. Joining, though, would have meant losing his membership in the Professional Golfers Association. The Saudi-backed tour has gotten a lot of big names to leave the PGA Tour, including Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, and Bubba Watson. Today, Brittany Griner was back in a Russian courtroom. She has been detained since February 17th on drug charges, faces up to 10 years in prison if found guilty. Talks continue between Secretary of State Blinken and Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov on a deal to exchange Victor Bout for her and Paul Whelan. So far, neither side is reporting any progress. Today, Griner's defense team will present and submit additional evidence. She is not expected to speak.
Turning to COVID now, the subvariant BA.5 remains the main cause of COVID-19 infections in the United States.
But the CDC says there's a new variant growing. That's BA.4.6. Keep track of all these, okay? The new strain has been found in 47 states, including Colorado. It counts for 4% of new infections during the last week of July, while BA.5 caused an estimated 86% of those infections.
And President Biden continues to test positive for COVID-19, but his doctor says the president feels well overall, hasn't had a fever, but does have a nagging cough. The president's fully vaccinated and double boosted. He recently finished a 5-day treatment of Paxlovid. He tested negative shortly after and was back in public, but is now once again back in isolation. We're going to talk about debt around the country. It continues to grow at an unprecedented rate.
New information out today about consumer spending doesn't paint a pretty picture. And the need for help with groceries is growing as inflation rises. But one local group making sure no one goes without.
Let's take a live look outside up in Boulder. Another steamy day around the metro area today. Of course, Danielle's got a look at what's coming our way weather-wise. Just a couple minutes.